Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the place you come to when you want to get past the headlines, dig into the source material, and really understand the core truth and those surprising details that just stick with you.
And today we've got a really challenging one. It's a story that's just full of, well, profound and deeply disturbing contrasts. We're talking about Matthew Muller.
Right.
And his name forces you to hold two completely opposite ideas in your head at once. On one hand, you've got this decorated Marine sergeant, a summa cum laude college grad, a Harvard law lawyer.
Someone who really dedicated himself to helping immigrants.
Exactly. And then on the other hand, you have the same man becoming this calculating yet severely delusional serial rapist and kidnapper.
It's that stark difference, that duality, that's really the focus of our deep dive today. Mueller's probably most infamous for that 2015 kidnapping of Denise Huskins and Aaron Quinn, the one the media immediately dubbed the Gone Girl case.
Yeah, and it was so bizarre, so elaborate, that the police, well, they just flat out dismissed the victims, called it a hoax.
Unbelievable. So we've really dug into a single, very comprehensive source for this one. It traces Mueller's life over decades. You see this incredible professional rise.
And then this absolutely catastrophic crash into severe, untreated mental illness. We're talking bipolar disorder with psychosis, and later a diagnosis of schizophrenia.
So our mission really is to unpack how these two things collide. How does someone with that kind of brain power, I mean, he was named one of the ABA's techiest lawyers, how does that person succumb to such overwhelming paranoia, such intricate psychotic delusions that lead to violent, planned crimes?
We're trying to follow those psychological threads.
Yeah.
Connect the advocate to the attacker.
And for you listening, this case, it's just packed with insights. It's almost a textbook look at how serious mental illness, professional failure, and escalating criminal acts can intersect in the most devastating way.
And we absolutely cannot skip over the other crucial part, how the authorities failed the victims, just failed to believe them because the story didn't fit their neat little boxes. That failure just compounded the trauma.
Definitely. So let's start before the fall. Let's look at the architect. Okay, so let's trace this path. Matthew Muller, born 1977, grew up in suburban Sacramento. Anything jump out from his early life?
Well, his parents divorced when he was in high school.
Yeah.
And sources say that's around when he started becoming more withdrawn, more introverted. Apparently he was bullied quite a bit, too, for being overweight.
But even then, there was this other side, right? This strong moral streak.
Yeah, exactly. Even as a teen, he had this reputation. If he saw someone getting picked on or treated unfairly, he was known for fighting for the underdog. That's a phrase that comes up.
That theme. It really does run through his life, doesn't it? Even when it gets incredibly twisted later on.
Absolutely. And he clearly had the smarts to back it up. Total high achiever in school, great GPA, over 3.8. He was in the computer club, played the trumpet.
And the languages. I mean, fluent in English, Spanish, Russian, and German.
It's remarkable. That kind of intellectual capacity, that drive, it suggests a mind built for complex thinking, for structure, which kind of chillingly proved useful in his later crimes.
But okay, beneath all that achievement, there's this incredibly dark early incident, something that happened long before the major mental health issues were really recognized.
Yes, this is critical. We have to mark this.
Yeah.
In 1993, Muller was just 16, and he committed his first known violent crime.
16? What happened?
He kidnapped and raped a teenage girl. She was camping with her boyfriend near Folsom Lake. He apparently held them at gunpoint, tied up the boyfriend, abducted the girl, and assaulted her.
Wow, so that capacity for planned, brutal violence, it was there, even when he was on the surface this successful high school kid.
Exactly. And what's so disturbing is that this stayed hidden for decades. He didn't confess or face any consequences for that 1993 attack until 2024.
So it really suggests the roots of this go deeper than just the later onset of bipolar or schizophrenia. There was something else going on, complex, for a long, long time.
Seems that way. So after high school, 1995, he joins the Marines. What was the thinking there?
Sources say it was about getting in shape, getting some discipline, and importantly, funding college. He served 4 years, did well, became a decorated sergeant.
Yeah, his record looks pretty distinguished. 3 service medals, a ribbon. He traveled the world with the Marine Band, playing trumpet Australia, Abu Dhabi, the UAE. Definitely seemed like a capable Marine.
But it sounds like his service period might also be where some of the mental health struggles began to surface.
It seems so. During a deployment in '99, he was training soldiers in the Middle East, apparently. Though not in combat, he started reporting symptoms. He actually self-diagnosed it as Gulf War syndrome.
Interesting. And there was also this moral outrage element again, right? Witnessing harassment?
Yes, the source mentions he saw discrimination against fellow Marines he thought might be gay. And that seemed to trigger that underdog defender instinct again. He eventually requested and got an honorable discharge.
Which then paved the way for college and this intense focus on social justice.
Right. He goes to Pomona College, graduates summa cum laude, double major in econ and science, technology, and society. And he's volunteering on the side, helping homeless people deal with government agencies.
And then the big leap. Harvard Law gets his JD in 2006.
And while he's there, he's pouring himself into work at the Legal Aid Bureau, focusing on really tough cases, immigration law, defending low-income tenants, especially victims of domestic violence.
People described him as smart, caring, but also maybe a little too devoted.
Unusually devoted was the phrase used. And that intensity, you have to wonder, was it just pure dedication? Or was it an early sign of that obsessive focus that later morphed into these fixed delusions?
Maybe a bit of both, diving so deep into his clients' stories of being wronged by the system.
Perhaps that resonated too strongly, fueled his own later sense of persecution. After Harvard, he stayed on for a bit, research assistant, managed the Immigration and Refugee Clinical Program, got rave reviews. This was really his peak profession.
Then he moves out to Silicon Valley, sets up as an immigration attorney, and gets noticed for being really tech-savvy.
So much so that in 2012, the American Bar Association votes him one of their techiest lawyers.
And that combination, the legal mind, the tech skills, the advocacy, it all comes together in that Blanca Medina case in 2012, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This was a huge deal. She was a mother, PTSD from sexual abuse back in El Salvador, facing deportation because she'd missed a hearing years before. The courts basically shut the door on reopening her case.
So Mueller hits this institutional roadblock. And what does he do?
He takes the fight online. He understood the power of the internet. He launched a change.org petition.
Yeah.
And he argued really fiercely that icy rules were basically letting them ignore proof that someone could face torture or death if deported.
And blew up, didn't it?
Massively. Nearly 118,000 signatures. It just caught fire.
So he literally takes this giant petition,
Walks right into the ICE office in San Francisco and delivers it. The public pressure was just overwhelming. They had to halt her deportation, reopen her asylum case. It worked.
wow, successfully using tech and public opinion like that, that must have felt incredibly powerful. Like he could beat the system.
Oh, absolutely. And you can see how that feeling, that memory of successfully fighting injustice, could get horribly twisted later by his illness. That sense of power, of moral rightness, it tragically becomes the foundation for the fantasy that justified his later violence.
Such a high peak, which makes the collapse that followed even more shocking. Okay, so let's track this decline. It wasn't sudden, was it? Even back at Harvard, when he seemed at the top of his game.
No, the internal struggle was already there. He was dealing with major depression, signs of mania, even suicidal thoughts. Then came the official bipolar diagnosis in 2008.
And bipolar disorder, especially with psychotic features, it often involves these huge swings, right? Grandiosity, paranoia.
Exactly. For Mueller, it manifested as intense paranoia. He became convinced the government was after him because of his clients. Thought his phone was tapped, computer hacked. First the U.S. government, later he fixated on the Chinese government.
And that paranoia starts eating away at his actual career.
Completely. His law license gets suspended in 2013 just for not paying dues, which is unthinkable for someone previously so meticulous. Then 2015, he's fully disbarred in California, failed to show up in court, totally dropped the ball on a client's paperwork.
The whole professional structure just crumbled.
And terrifyingly, those internal paranoid beliefs started spilling out into external action, criminal action, highly organized action that, well, it really foreshadowed the Vallejo kidnapping years later. We need to talk about those 2009 home invasions in Santa Clara County.
Right. Walk us through the MO there. How similar was it to what happened in Vallejo?
Chillingly similar, almost like dress rehearsals. He was incredibly methodical, broke into a woman's home in Mountain View, dressed head to toe in black spandex suit, ski mask, total anonymity.
Ties up the victim immediately.
Yes, and covers her eyes with blacked out swim goggles, forces her to drink NyQuil to keep her sedated, disoriented.
And he pretended he wasn't alone.
Correct. That was key. He talked as if he had accomplices, whispering commands, making it seem like some big organized crime ring, stealing her identity for money. This whole imaginary gang thing.
Yeah.
It becomes a signature later, part of the psychosis.
But that first 2009 invasion ended, strangely.
Yeah, completely contradictory. He tells the victim he's going to rape her. She starts pleading with him. And he stops. He actually apologizes, tells her she should get a dog for protection, and then just leaves without assaulting her.
Wow. And then he does it again.
A few weeks later, yeah. College Terrace, Palo Alto, a Stanford student, exact same MO. The food, the goggles, the drugging, the claims about accomplices.
Did she resist?
She did. She fought back, told him about a previous assault she'd survived. And again, it seemed to flip some kind of moral switch in him. He leaves her apartment. But get this. Before he walks out, Muller, the home invader, stops and gives her crime prevention advice.
That is just the ultimate paradox right there. The attacker is also the lawyer, the protector. He's fighting himself even as he's committing the crime.
That's exactly it. It shows the internal conflict. In both 2009 cases, the victims somehow managed to talk him down from sexual assault. His sort of moral programming was battling the psychotic urges.
But the police did suspect him, right? There was a connection.
Yes, in the second case, the College Terrace one. The victim had actually attended panel discussion Muller organized back at Harvard in 2008. It was a subtle link, but enough. When police interviewed him at his law office, his paranoia just exploded.
He thought they were part of the conspiracy.
Completely. Convinced the Palo Alto police were working with the Chinese government, that his office and car were bugged. That was it. The high-functioning lawyer was gone.
So he bolts, leaves a note saying he's going completely off the grid.
Yeah, no phone, email, credit cards, do not try to track me. Frames his problems were beyond my mental health. He swaps cars with his mom to cover his tracks and flees to Utah near Zion.
It sets up camp.
Total isolation. Motion detectors, tripwires, living in constant fear of this psychological warfare he thought was being waged against him.
That kind of isolation must have just fueled the fire. So fast forward to 2014, 2015. He's in a cabin in South Lake Tahoe now.
Yeah, belonged to his mom and stepdad. He's basically a recluse, obsessed with certain media, especially the Batman movies, apparently. Barely sleeping.
And this is where the delusion really solidifies.
Absolutely. His bipolar disorder, now clearly with severe psychotic features, creates this impenetrable new reality. He develops this fixed belief. The world is secretly run by a cabal of evil, wealthy people. He called them a scienced-up version of demons, responsible for everything bad.
And he starts seeing them everywhere, people he knows.
Yes. He starts suspecting people close to him. His neighbor, Aaron Quinn. Even an ex-girlfriend. He believes they're part of this cabal.
So, out of this total break from reality comes the Robin Hood plot.
Right. Muller, the former advocate, decides the only way to fight for the underdog now is through violence. He creates this whole vigilante persona, wears a black wetsuit at night, makes crude weapons, modifying flashlights, laser pointers, using toy guns to intimidate.
And the plan is, kidnap the evil rich.
Kidnap them, hold them for ransom, and give the money to the poor. In his mind, this wasn't just acceptable, it was morally justified. The man who used Change.org to save a client now believes kidnapping and extortion are his only tools for advocacy.
Driven entirely by psychosis. It's a terrifying setup for what happened next in Vallejo.
Okay, March 23rd, 2015. About 3:00 a.m., Muller puts his plan into action. Breaks into Aaron Quinn and Denise Huskin's home.
And he uses a water pistol he'd modified to look like a real gun, gets them subdued, forces them both to take a sedative.
And right away, he's trying to create this illusion of a bigger operation.
Absolutely. He plays this pre-recorded message, makes it sound like a professional team, collecting debts, whispering commands to imaginary partners, all designed to terrify them, make them think they're dealing with a dangerous, organized group.
The imaginary gang again. He needed them to believe in this elite 3-person gang or the Ocean's 11 ring to keep control. Right. And police later confirmed, definitively, he was acting completely alone. The whole gang was just part of his psychosis. Yeah. But for Quinn and Huskins, in that moment, the threat felt entirely real. They believed multiple people were involved watching.
And the ransom demand itself was so specific. 2 payments, $8,500 each.
Yeah, and he apparently explained why. He knew anything over $10,000 triggers automatic bank reporting. He was using his old legal and financial knowledge during the commission of the crime to try and avoid detection. It's just that mix of professional detail and utter psychosis is mind-boggling.
So then he takes Denise Huskins.
Puts her in the trunk of Quinn's car first, then transfers her to a stolen Ford Mustang he had ready, drives her about 400 miles north to that isolated cabin in South Lake Tahoe, holds her there for 2 days, and during that time, he sexually assaults her twice.
Meanwhile, back in Vallejo, Aaron Quinn is, well, terrified and paralyzed.
Completely. Muller had convinced him they were being watched, that his family would be harmed if he went to the police. Muller weaponized his own paranoia against his victim. So Quinn doesn't report it until almost 2 p.m. that day, and only after talking to his brother, who was an FBI agent.
And that delay, the police immediately see it as suspicious.
Instantly. They jump straight to thinking Quinn killed her, and the kidnapping story is just a cover-up.
This is where the whole system just fails them, right? Despite Muller sending proof of life.
Yeah, he sent recordings of Huskins, emails demanding ransom, claiming it was real, a training mission even. The Vallejo police just ignored it all.
And then March 25th, the same day Huskins is released, dropped off near her family's home hundreds of miles away, the police hold that press conference.
And just publicly declare the whole thing a hoax, fabricated by Huskins.
The media reaction must have been immediate.
Oh, it was a firestorm.
Yeah.
The Gone Girl comparison was everywhere. That movie had just come out, and it fit the narrative the police were pushing. It became the defining label for the case, instantly undermining the victims.
And the consequences for Huskins and Quinn were devastating.
Absolutely horrific. Global ridicule. People questioning everything about them, their relationship, their sanity. They both lost their jobs. The harassment got so bad they eventually had to move away just to escape it all. The police didn't just fail them, they basically turned the public against them.
Okay, but here's where it gets even weirder. Mueller's reaction to the police calling it a hoax.
He was furious. He saw it as a personal insult. Like, how dare they dismiss the brilliance and complexity of his operation?
So he contacts the media himself.
Sends this massive 9,000-word email, like a manifesto, to the San Francisco Chronicle, demanding they set the record straight. He confirms he kidnapped Huskins, insists the couple is telling the truth.
The cognitive dissonance is just staggering. He commits this awful crime, then his main goal becomes vindicating his victims because the police denied his crime actually happened.
Exactly. He even expresses deep remorse and regret. Says he's mortified by the impact on Huskins. It's like he believed the kidnapping itself was somehow necessary, but the police calling it a hoax. That crossed some kind of line in his delusional moral code.
And he threatened the police?
Publicly threatened Officer Kenny Park. Demanded an apology by noon Tuesday, or he'd harm someone else.
And he wasn't just talking, he planned another attack.
He absolutely did. He was so enraged by the whole Gone Girl thing, especially comments made by Nancy Grace on TV, that he planned another kidnapping specifically to prove them wrong.
He was going to send photos to Nancy Grace.
That was the plan. Send photos of the new victim with a note saying, basically, this is your fault for calling Huskins a liar. Retract it or I'll keep doing this.
And he did commit another crime shortly after.
Yes. Just 2 weeks after the Huskins kidnapping, he carried out another home invasion and kidnapping for ransom in San Ramon. 3 victims this time, extorted tens of thousands. And they didn't report it for a long time.
Oh, why not?
Because they saw what happened to Huskins and Quinn. They were terrified of facing that same public ridicule and police disbelief. The Vallejo PD's actions had created a chilling effect.
So Mueller is still out there, still driven by this need to vindicate Huskins, still caught in this evil cabal delusion, and he tries again.
Yes, in Dublin, California, June 2015. He picks a house on a street he thought offered an easy escape, goes in around 3:30 a.m., same tactics, demands the couple lie face down, tries the psychological terror, claims he has their daughter safe, even though he didn't.
But this time it goes wrong for him.
It does. The husband fights back, rushes him, tackles him. There's a struggle. Mueller hits the guy in the head, needed staples later, but Mueller is forced to flee. And in the panic,
He leaves something behind.
the critical mistake,
Thank you.
he drops his cell phone. For the techiest lawyer, leaving behind your phone, that's game over.
They trace it pretty quickly then?
Very quickly. He's arrested without any trouble back at the South Lake Tahoe cabin on June 9th, 2015. And really, the credit for finally connecting all the dots, linking Dublin back to Vallejo, goes to a detective named Misty Carosu. She was pretty early in her career at the time.
And she approached it differently than Vallejo PD.
Completely different, methodical, no rush to judgment. She processes that cabin, processes the stolen white Ford Mustang found nearby, and she finds the key evidence.
What specifically?
Okay, first, a single hair. Belonging to Denise Huskins, still stuck to one of those blacked-out swim goggles. Second, Aaron Quinn's laptop is there in the cabin. And the absolute clincher, the GPS and the stolen Mustang still had the address in Huntington Beach where Mueller dropped Huskins off 400 miles away.
So the physical evidence, the hair, the laptop, the GPS, it just completely blows the hoax theory out of the water, finally vindicates Huskins and Quinn.
Totally. And the FBI later found more stuff in a storage unit. He had drones, a wireless camera system. Confirmed he was using his tech skills for surveillance and planning, even if the motive was pure psychosis.
So the arrest happens, but the legal process sounds like it was a nightmare because of his mental state.
Oh, incredibly complex. He initially pleads no contest to the Dublin charges. Then in court, September 2015, he dramatically faints, just collapses. Gives you a sense of his fragility.
He eventually pleads guilty to the federal kidnapping charge for Vallejo, right? Against 40 years.
Yes, that was in 2016.
Yeah.
Sentenced to 40 years in federal prison in Tucson. But the state charges rape, burglary, all the other stuff related to Vallejo and the earlier crimes. That process dragged on because his mental condition just kept getting worse.
This is where the delusions really come out in court.
Absolutely. He starts trying to retract his federal guilty plea, saying he wasn't mentally sound when he made it.
Starts filing his own motions.
Yeah, alleging these wild conspiracies. Police planted evidence, fabricated reports, made Hollywood-grade edits to photos, using his legal background to build these elaborate paranoid arguments about the investigation itself.
And he wanted to represent himself at one point, pro se. That must have terrified the victims.
Imagine the prospect of him cross-examining Huskins and Quinn. Horrific. But then, in another one of those strange moments of something, he actually declined to cross-examine them. Said in court he didn't want to re-victimize them.
But his grip on reality was clearly gone by then.
Completely. By late 2020, things deteriorated significantly. He's officially diagnosed with schizophrenia.
What were the signs?
Just textbook severe psychosis. He claimed his family had been replaced by imposters. He called the judge Lucifer during a hearing. Said the courtroom was full of actors, agents, even sort of demon-possessed people. He was totally disconnected from reality.
So they had to rule him incompetent.
Initially, yes. Ruled incompetent to stand trial. Sent to a state hospital in 2021. They actually had to medicate him against his will to try and restore some level of competency.
What's your word?
Enough, apparently. By March 2022, he was deemed competent again. His lawyer worked out a plea deal on the remaining state charges from the rape counts. He pleaded no contest, got a 31-year sentence, but it would run concurrently at the same time as his 40-year federal sentence.
So legally it seemed wrapped up. But the full story, the full scope of his crimes wasn't quite out yet. And this final part of the story is, well, it's pretty extraordinary. It really comes down to the victims, Denise Huskins and Aaron Quinn, and their sheer determination.
It's incredible. After everything they went through, they didn't just retreat. The Netflix documentary, American Nightmare, brought a lot of attention back to the case, sure. But they became the driving force. They turned into advocates.
Advocates for themselves and for closing these old cases.
Exactly. They started actively working with law enforcement detective Karasu, again, DAs in different counties. They used their platform, the visibility of their ordeal, to push for answers about Muller's past.
How did they actually get him to confess? I mean, he's diagnosed schizophrenic, prone to delusions.
It seems like a combination of persistent legal pressure and maybe moral pressure, too. They worked closely with the Sacramento DA's office, laying out the pattern, the psychology, and the fact that he was already serving life sentences probably played a role. Sometimes perpetrators become more willing to talk, then clear the slate, regain some sense of control, perhaps.
And it worked. He signed affidavits in 2024, confessing to older crimes.
Yes, several of them. It was a huge breakthrough, directly because of Huskins and Quinn's advocacy.
Okay, let's break down what he confessed to, that very first crime from when he was 16.
The 1993 Folsom Lake kidnapping and rape. In June 2025, he pleaded guilty. 32 years later, sentenced to 11 years to life for that. The victim finally got that resolution.
Wow. And the 2009 home invasions, the ones in Santa Clara County.
His practice runs, yeah. Mountain View and Palo Alto. He pleaded guilty to those in January 2025. DNA had eventually confirmed it was him anyway. He got 2 life sentences for those, handed down in March 2025.
And that 2015 San Ramon case, the one that happened right after Huskins was kidnapped?
The victims were too scared to report initially. Yes. 3 victims, kidnapping for ransom, tens of thousands extorted. The assistant DA specifically said their fear came directly from seeing how Huskins and Quinn were treated. Muller pleaded no contest to those charges in July 2025, got another life sentence.
So when you add it all up, the final tally is staggering.
It really is.
Yeah.
Matthew Muller is now serving 4 consecutive life sentences, plus that concurrent 31-year sentence. He's locked up in FCI Tucson. Thanks to the victims refusing to stay silent, we finally see the true devastating scale of his crimes over decades.
Incredibly tragic arc. Matthew Muller, decorated Marine, brilliant lawyer fighting for the underdog then, completely consumed by severe mental illness, becoming a serial predator, leaving decades of violence in his wake.
The tragedy hits on so many levels. There's the personal tragedy of his mind collapsing, this potential just utterly destroyed by psychosis. And then there's the systemic tragedy, the failure of law enforcement in the Huskins and Quinn case, branding victims as liars because the truth seemed too bizarre.
Which not only doubled their trauma, but arguably allowed Muller to continue, even motivated him to commit more crimes to prove his twisted point.
And that core contradiction never went away. The source material keeps showing us. The guy who fought for the underdog, who saw injustice. His psychotic break twisted that into the Robin Hood delusion, justifying horrific acts against this imagined evil, wealthy cabal.
It leaves you with this really unsettling question, doesn't it?
It really does. Can that fundamental moral drive, that desire to advocate, get so warped by severe psychosis that it doesn't just excuse, but actually demands actions that are the total opposite of a person's lifelong values?
When the mind shatters like that, does the impulse to help just become an impulse to harm, wrapped in some kind of delusional justification?
A deeply disturbing thought. And it really highlights why understanding the complexities of mental illness and believing victims is so critical.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on this really difficult but important deep dive.
We hope exploring this helps you, the listener, grapple with these complex intersections of, incredible ability and catastrophic mental breakdown.